This anime kind of blindsided me. I should have known it was coming out today, but for some reason, I was surprised when I heard that the first episode of Reincarnated as a Sword came out. And so, I sat down, I watched it. And I think the question many of us are asking ourselves, is this good or bad Isekai trash? That's the question. Because if you were following my overall thoughts on the episode when I was posting on social media, you probably have a good impression maybe how I feel about the episode, but I do want to expand upon my overall thoughts and how I truly feel about it now that I've sat down and kind of thought about it for the last 40 or so minutes. So let's talk about it. Reincarnated as a Sword is definitely something that just tells you what it's about with the title, which I guess goes for any type of light novel series. With a light novel title, it's usually so long, it tells you everything you need to know about what series you're about to get into. And to make a quick little point slash disclaimer here, I have no idea about the original source. Like, for instance, I have not read the original source, I don't know anything about it, I don't have any spoilers, I've only seen the key visual for the anime, and only times I've seen, like, anything with a light novel is when I went to my local bookstore and I saw one of the light novels there. That's the only time I've ever seen anything about Reincarnated as a Sword. So I have no idea where the story's gonna go, I don't know if there's gonna be character deaths, I don't know if there's gonna be some major plot twist, etc. Have no idea. So this is a completely blind first impressions and overall thoughts of the series thanks to the first episode introducing me to Reincarnated as a Sword. Now with that out of the way, is it good? That's a question I was asking myself when I finished the episode. Because there was moments where I was like, there was moments where I was like, this is good, and then there was moments where I was like, whoa, and then there was moments like, and, you know, my overall emotional wavelength with the series just constantly was up and down with it. And I feel like the series really started to shine around 60%. Around, like, 15 or so minutes into it when our character kind of got stuck into the ground and he was trapped and he needed someone to pull him out of the ground, basically like Excalibur. This is when the episode took a very interesting turn, and I think it got a lot better, because then you moved into the main female character, where we have a lot of dark stuff here, as you can see. I'm surprised that wasn't censored. But, we see the main female character, Fran, appear, and she pulls him out of the ground, and obviously, thanks to how OP he is as a legendary sword, she makes quick work of this bare Cerberus thing. And it's a really good sequence of events, and I'll talk more about this in a second, but I guess let's get into the fundamentals. The first episode, and what it actually brings. Does it change the formula? Does it do anything different? Does this inspire creativity? Has this shaken the very foundations of what Isekai has to offer? No. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that that's a bad thing. I want to make sure I say that first. As I say in all my other videos, be as cliche as you want, comes down to execution. That's what it is. And obviously, when we think of how reincarnated stories or transported to another world stories begin, there's really not much you can do to really mix up the formula. It's the truth. There's few things you probably can do I'm not thinking about, but for the most part, either you're instantly transported / reincarnated in that world and something bad happens, or maybe you're OP or whatever, or you get to see a goddess or a god and they bestow you power, etc. Kind of like what happens in Cautious Hero, or what happens in Konosuba, etc. So, there's ways to mix up the formula, but for the most part, a lot of these different areas have been explored, and so when you start watching a lot of these type of stories, they start to feel very samey. It's the truth. They do. If you've watched a good 5 or 10 already of these type of shows, you will start to see a pattern. You'll start to see a lot of similarities, where the shows start to feel like just a new coat of paint. That's what it is. It's like just new characters, or a new thing that the person is reincarnated as, and that's about it. It feels like a fresh or new coat of paint on something you've already seen. Now, once again, that doesn't automatically mean it's bad. I want to make sure I say that. But this show is basically following that typical traditional formula. That it is basically reincarnated as a slime, the spider isekai as well, with, like, I guess some elements of just, like, being OP, stuff like that. It's literally, that's exactly how the beginning is. Because the first 50% of the episode is literally our character going through a montage, getting stronger, gaining sword skills, something that you typically see in these series. For instance, the first episode, it always starts off with montages of learning your character skills, what's in the world, what's your specialty, etc. Once again, there could be twists to this formula, but overall, it's a very traditional thing, and it's nothing that relatively makes me upset or makes me excited. It is just the common start. And here's the thing, I think anyone that's already made it to this point in the video are probably instantly going to draw the conclusion that you're just going to skip the show. And I feel like a lot of people are going to feel that way. I have a really good feeling that people are just going to instantly skip this show because it doesn't look like it's going to be anything amazing. But I don't really know what more people would expect at this point, especially when you can't, like I said, mix up the formula to a massive degree. Yes, there can be differences. Yes, maybe the art and animation can be a lot better to really carry it, but there's not much you really can do, and it is the first episode. And I feel like to really get a good impression, especially of an Isekai series, is by watching, like, the first 3 episodes. The 3-episode rule. That's how you can really see if it's going to be good or not, because looking at the entirety of this first episode, you don't really get a good indication of the plot. Like, okay, we slightly do, but you don't really get, like, an overarching plot. Something that really sets up the in-game goal. Like, there's no Demon King, nothing like that. And it makes you wonder, where is the story's direction going to go? That's a good and a bad thing. It means it's a blank slate, which means that it can take any direction it wants. If it wants to be more comedy-based or dark theme-based, whatever. And judging by just the episode and the lack of censorship and all that, I'm going to assume that this is going to be a dark series. That's my 2 cents on the matter. But, getting back on point, the point here is that the first half of the episode is incredibly generic. It is. But the second half is really good. When she gets the sword and you see her running from the people that have enslaved her, and she grabs the sword and wields it, for some reason, the scene just goes super hard. Like, I gotta take a few moments to talk about this. This scene has some music that just goes so hard. And I'm just like, whoa, why is the music just so different? Because it's like, if there is anything that really got my eyes glued to the screen from watching this episode, it was when the music started to play. And I was like, why is the music going so hard? And why do I recognize it? And I could be wrong here. Don't quote me on this one. But I think the music composer for this show might be the Fairy Tail anime music composer. Because the music sounds oddly familiar. That's all I'm going to say. It sounds very familiar, and it sounds very much like how Fairy Tail used to sound. I don't know if it's the same composer. I have no idea. Maybe the person was inspired, but the music reminded me a lot of early Fairy Tail music. And you could say whatever you want about Fairy Tail. You're not going to tell me the music isn't good. You're not going to tell me that. Nobody's going to sit and actually straight up tell me that the music of Fairy Tail is bad. Just going to be honest. I know there's different tastes out there, but it would legitimately shock me if someone said the music was bad if you've watched a lot of anime. But okay, with that, the point is that this is where the episode starts getting very good. When she gets the sword, she defeats, like, the Cerberus bear-like entity, and we get to see her break her chains, her collar, basically her enslavement, and she kind of gets to be free and go and get a lot stronger, which this is kind of what the episode sets up with the story, is that she feels very weak. She feels like she can't do much, and when she encounters our main character, that is the sword, which his name is Teacher, by the way, very weird name and bland, basically, she is able to get a lot stronger, and that's kind of where the story begins. So we don't really know what else is going to happen with the story. Like I said, anything can happen, but that's the general premise, at the very least. Now, let's talk about the characters. Is the characters good? Is our Nekomimi, which is the cat girl, is she a good character? Is the sword character a good character? Right now, they're flat as cardboard. Like, they're cardboard cutout characters. That's exactly what they are. She, so far, the character, she's just a very stoic character. The main female, she's stoic, and she's just a typical, like, she's seen a lot of stuff, she's dealt with a lot of stuff, so she's very stoic. And then the sword guy is just your typical, I was reincarnated, I'm super powerful, and that's about it. So, there's nothing really amazing with the characters. They feel very plain. Once again, that can change. This is the first episode, and I am willing to give leeway to a series, especially these type of stories, because you got to see where it's going to go. And it was nothing that was so bad that I was like, oh, don't, just skip this. So, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to watch this. But I think that it could be something good if we stick with it. I could be wrong there, anything can happen, but it could potentially be good. Now, one last thing I do want to cover, though, before I kind of wrap up this video, I do want to take a few moments to talk about how this episode has a 3D, like CGI, for the sword. There is CGI for the sword, and it doesn't necessarily look bad. It's going to be noticeable, but it doesn't look bad. And I think that that's going to be some people's big sticking point why they might not like this episode, is because of that. That is something I do want to say. Also, I guess one last thing. I think, though, once the shows for this season start to come out, when Bleach, Chainsaw Man, Mob Psycho, etc. start to come out, I feel like the series is going to be forgot about. I feel like this is going to be under the radar, and nobody's going to watch or talk about this because of just how much other stuff's coming out for the season. Could be wrong there, but that's what I think is going to happen. So, is it good? Is it bad? So far, I wouldn't say this is terrible, but I wouldn't say this was great either. I'm down the middle, leaning a little bit on the bad side, but I don't think it's bad, like bad. It could be good. It's the first episode. So there's my thoughts. So if I brought you any form of information, entertainment, and helped you kind of settle your thoughts on how you might feel about this show, then do drop me a like down below. It does help me out a lot, and I would greatly appreciate it. But with that, be safe, stay healthy, everyone. Chibi out.